HOA sent biker gang to kidnap my sister, unaware I'm county sheriff. Before we start the story, please comment down from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe. The sound of shattering glass tore me from sleep at 2:17 a.m. Before I could even grab my gun from the nightstand, heavy boots thundered down the hallway toward my sister's room. 3 men in black leather jackets and helmets kicked her door open. I heard her scream, a sound that froze my blood, before it was cut off suddenly. By the time I reached her doorway, they were dragging her out through the broken window, a gloved hand clamped over her mouth, her eyes wide with terror. "Emma!" I shouted, aiming my service weapon at the last kidnapper as he climbed out. He turned and I saw the red wolf patch on his jacket gleaming in the moonlight. He didn't speak, just smiled and tossed something onto Emma's bed before disappearing into the night. Outside, motorcycle engines roared to life. I rushed to the window, firing one shot at their retreating forms, but they were already speeding away, my sister sandwiched between 2 riders on the lead bike, her pink pajamas bright against the darkness. My hands shook as I picked up what the biker had thrown onto the bed, a white envelope. Inside was a typed note: payment for violations due, $250,000 or sign over property deed by noon tomorrow. Further instructions will follow. The HOA management. In that moment, standing in my sister's empty bedroom with that note in my hand, something inside me changed. They didn't know who they were dealing with. I wasn't just Matt Sullivan, homeowner of 1445 Whisper Glen Drive. I was Sheriff Matt Sullivan of Oak Ridge County. And they had just made the biggest mistake of their lives. I'd moved to Whisper Glen Estates 6 months ago, seeking peace after 15 years of seeing the worst humanity had to offer. Emma joined me 3 weeks ago after her nasty divorce, needing a fresh start. For exactly 18 days we had something close to normal. Then the trouble started. It began with a notice taped to our mailbox. Holiday decorations must be removed within 48 hours of holiday conclusion. Current fine, $150. The Christmas wreath Emma had hung on our door had apparently offended the sacred HOA bylaws. "This is ridiculous," Emma said, tossing the notice onto the kitchen counter. "Christmas was 2 days ago. I paid the fine thinking it would end there. I was wrong." 3 days later, another notice appeared. Unapproved vehicle on premises. Vehicles with visible damage must be garaged per Section 22B. Fine, $200. They were targeting Emma's car, a slightly dented Honda she'd had since college. The next day, it was her wind chimes, excessive noise, then her potted flowers, unapproved vegetation, and even the color of her curtains, visible window treatments must conform to approved palette. "These people are insane," Emma said over dinner, after receiving her 5th violation in 10 days. "It's like they're targeting me specifically. I should have taken it more seriously." Instead, I told her not to worry, that I'd handle it. I tried talking to Karen Hastings, the HOA president, a woman with platinum blonde hair, designer clothes, and a smile that never reached her eyes. She lived 3 doors down in the biggest house on the block. "These are the rules everyone agreed to, Sheriff Sullivan," she said, emphasizing my title like it was meaningless here. "No exceptions, not even for law enforcement. This is a community of standards." I should have seen the danger in her eyes, should have noticed how she watched Emma whenever we were outside. Instead, I just tried to play nice, thinking we could work within their system. The violations kept coming. Emma's car was towed from in front of our house while she was at work. Someone reported her to the city for running an unlicensed business because she sold handmade jewelry on Etsy. Her mail disappeared. Then I started noticing the motorcycles, black Harleys with red wolf emblems cruising slowly past our house. Men in leather jackets watching from street corners as Emma left for her job at the library. "You're being paranoid," Emma said when I asked her to vary her routes and text me when she arrived safely. "Just humor me," I replied. 2 days before the kidnapping, I found a black leather glove on our porch. The middle finger had been cut off, an old biker gang threat I recognized from a case years ago. This wasn't just harassment anymore. This was a warning. And I ignored it. Now Emma was gone, taken by men who left their calling card and a ransom note demanding either cash or my house. I didn't call my department. If this went as deep as I suspected, I couldn't trust the official channels. Instead, I called the one neighbor who had been friendly since we moved in, Rick Davis, a retired Marine who lived across the street. "They took her," I said when he answered, my voice tight with controlled rage. "The bikers?" he asked, no trace of sleep in his voice despite the hour. "Yes, 3 of them. They left a ransom note from the HOA. Silence for a moment. Then, "I'll be there in 5. When Rick arrived, he brought something I hadn't expected, A thick folder full of photos, financial records, and maps. I've been tracking them for months, he explained, spreading papers across my kitchen table. Ever since they forced my daughter out of her house last year. The evidence was damning. Westgate Development, a large real estate firm, had been buying properties throughout Whisper Glen at suspiciously low prices, all after months of escalating HOA violations against the homeowners. Karen Hastings's husband worked as legal counsel for Westgate. The same motorcycle gang had been spotted at 3 different properties before their owners suddenly sold and moved away. They're systematically forcing people out so they can buy the properties cheap for a luxury condo development, Rick said, pointing to architectural plans he'd somehow obtained. Your lot is one of the last 5 they need. Where would they take her? I asked, strapping on my tactical vest and checking my weapon. Rick pointed to a location on the map. Old Paper Mill on County Road 7. It's owned by a shell company tied to Westgate. My buddy works security at the industrial park next door, says he's seen motorcycles coming and going the past few weeks. I geared up, not in my sheriff's uniform but in black tactical pants and a dark jacket. This wasn't an official operation. This was personal. I'm coming with you, Rick said, pulling out his own gun. You sure about this? It's not your fight. They did this to my family too, he replied, eyes hard. Just didn't take it this far because my daughter left. I should have stopped them then. We took Rick's truck, driving without headlights as we approached the old paper mill. The building loomed against the night sky, a hulking shadow of rusted metal and broken windows. 3 motorcycles were parked by a side entrance, confirming we were in the right place. 2 entrances, Rick whispered as we crouched behind an abandoned forklift. Main door and loading dock. Probably keeping her on the 2nd floor. Office area had the only working electricity last time I scouted this place. You take the loading dock, I said. I'll go through the front. Wait for my signal. I moved silently toward the main entrance, years of law enforcement training guiding each step. Through a broken window, I could see movement on the 2nd floor, shadows passing in front of a dim light. The front door was unlocked. Mistake number 1. These weren't professionals, just thugs with confidence. I slipped inside, avoiding the debris scattered across the floor, and made my way toward the metal staircase. Voices drifted down from above. How long we gotta keep her? A man's voice, rough with impatience. Until her brother pays up or signs. A woman's voice. Karen Hastings. He's stubborn, but he'll break when we send him her finger. My blood turned to ice. I'd seen what bikers like these could do. I texted Rick, now. From the other side of the building came a massive crash, followed by Rick's voice bellowing, police! Everybody down. Perfect distraction. I raced up the stairs as footsteps thundered above, reaching the 2nd floor landing just as one of the bikers rushed toward the loading dock. He never saw me coming. One strike with the butt of my gun and he crumpled to the floor. In what used to be the mill manager's office, I found Emma. She was tied to a chair, duct tape across her mouth, terror in her eyes. Karen Hastings stood beside her, a phone in one hand, a knife in the other. Behind them loomed a 2nd biker, massive and bearded. It's over, Karen, I said, my gun trained on the biker. Let her go. Karen's perfect mask cracked, revealing the monster beneath. You're making a mistake, Sheriff. Do you know who you're dealing with? Better than you know who you're dealing with, I replied. Drop the knife. Instead, she pressed it against Emma's throat. I don't think so. We're walking out of here or she bleeds out on this floor. The biker moved toward me, but froze when Rick appeared in the doorway behind him, shotgun raised. 2 against 2, Karen said, her voice steady despite the sweat beading on her forehead. Not great odds when I've got a knife to her throat. 3 against 2, came a new voice from the window. A state police tactical officer aimed his rifle through the broken glass. Actually, make that 15 against 2. Buildings surrounded, ma'am. Karen's face collapsed in shock. How? I called in some favors before we came, I explained. Sent them everything Rick's been gathering for months. They've been watching this place for hours, recording everything you've said. The biker raised his hands slowly. Smart man. Karen didn't move, the knife still against Emma's throat, her hand shaking now. It's over, Karen, I said, taking a step closer. Don't make this worse. For a terrible moment, I thought she would cut Emma anyway out of pure spite. Then the knife clattered to the floor. She looked suddenly smaller, just a desperate woman caught in her own trap. As state police officers swarmed the room, I rushed to Emma, cutting her free and pulling the tape gently from her mouth. You came, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Always, I promised, holding her close. Always. Outside, more police cars arrived. Karen and the bikers were led away in handcuffs. A suited man I recognized as Karen's husband was already in custody in the back of a state police car, his lawyer face replaced by naked fear. "How did you put this together so fast?" asked Captain Reynolds of the State Police Tactical Unit. I nodded toward Rick, who was giving a statement to another officer. "He did the hard part. Been documenting their operation for months. All I did was make the right call." The investigation revealed everything. Westgate Development had been running similar schemes in 3 counties, always working through local HOAs to harass homeowners into selling below market value. They hired the Red Wolves motorcycle gang, remnants of a once larger criminal enterprise, to handle intimidation and enforcement. 12 people were arrested on charges ranging from conspiracy to kidnapping and attempted murder. Karen and her husband faced the most serious charges. During the raid, police discovered files on 20 other homeowners in Whisper Glen who had been targeted for removal. 2 months later, we attended the preliminary hearing. Karen sat at the defendant's table, her designer clothes replaced by an orange jumpsuit, her perfect hair now showing dark roots. She refused to look at us as the prosecutor outlined the case. The defendants engaged in a systematic campaign of harassment, intimidation, and ultimately violence to force homeowners to sell their properties at below-market prices, the prosecutor explained. In the most serious case, they ordered the kidnapping of Emma Sullivan, threatening to mutilate her if her brother, Sheriff Sullivan, did not comply with their demands. Karen's lawyer tried to argue that she was just following orders from Westgate, that she never intended any real harm. Nobody believed him. As for Whisper Glen Estates, the residents held an emergency meeting and voted to dissolve the HOA entirely. It turned out most of them had been living in fear of violations and fines for years, never realizing they were all victims of the same scheme. Emma decided to stay. She painted our front door bright purple, a color definitely not on any approved palette, and hung wind chimes from every corner of the porch. She planted sunflowers along the walkway and parked her dented Honda proudly in the driveway. "You know what I've learned from all this?" she said one evening as we sat on that porch listening to the chimes. "What's that?" "The most dangerous people aren't always the obvious threats. Sometimes they're the ones with clipboards and fake smiles, making up rules to control others." I couldn't argue with that. In 15 years of law enforcement, I'd faced down armed suspects and hardened criminals. But the worst case of my career came from a homeowners association that crossed the line from petty tyranny to outright terrorism. They thought they were untouchable. They thought they could take my sister to get to me. What they didn't account for was that they weren't dealing with just any homeowner, they were dealing with the county sheriff. And nobody threatens my family and gets away with it.